Hello, how's it going, folks? Today I wanted to talk a little bit about ways that gaming changes when you're in your 30s. I look back at, being 20 and sort of coming out of college or finishing up college and you know that struggle to become a professional writer and how I was very focused on things like books and movies and even comics at the time and writing, and games weren't really high on my list of priorities. In sort of my mid 20s, early to mid 20s, that changed in a big way, and I basically rediscovered, sort of my childhood, obsession with games like Nintendo stuff, early Xbox stuff, Halo, Mario, Zelda, and then of course getting into new series like Destiny, Titanfall, Battlefield. Now I'm a couple months out from 37 now, and let me tell you, like, I'm definitely not the same sort of gamer I was at 20, 25, 29 even. So, um, yeah, it's I don't know. Basically, like, number 1, I finish a lot more games now. Um, for a long time, this was a serious struggle for me. I would just play lots of Call of Duty, lots of Destiny, lots of Battlefield, whatever sort of my friend group or my brother was playing, I would play, and I would be kind of driven by FOMO and wanting to, gaming being my social outlet, just kind of hanging with the guys, or whoever, friends that I met on Twitter as a writer, whoever, wanted to game with me. I would often sort of play what they wanted to play, or I would just sink thousands and thousands of hours into my Destiny addiction. Nowadays I play almost no Call of Duty, except with my brother, and I almost never play Destiny, or even games like that. Comparatively speaking, relative to how I used to be. Okay, and by the way, my name's Alex Kane. I'm a father of two from Illinois. I've been writing for and about video games professionally for about 13 years. I was just laid off for the second time in the span of 17 months, so I'm giving YouTube a serious shot. So if you're interested in learning about games journalism, writing and publishing, articles and books about video games and pop culture, things like that, or games PR and consulting, making your own small video game projects yourself, or if you just want to hear like the thoughts and the criticisms of a 30 something gamer, hit the subscribe button and we can do this more often. But yeah, I finish a lot more games now. And two of the ways that I manage to do that, I log everything on Backlogged, which is a great app that you should check out. It's kind of a web browser only app right now, sort of the gamer equivalent of Letterboxd. Yeah, I'll probably do a whole other video on that sometime because it's really cool. And I stream on Twitch now. So um, there's sort of like an obligation to the audience to try to finish things. Okay. And so this is good. This is good. This is positive reinforcement. I also, number 2, I also play a lot more variety now than ever before. Especially since my first layoff in like November of 24. I play things like Tetris. I recently finished Five Nights at Freddy's, the first one. I play old stuff like Morrowind. I try new stuff like Retro Rewind, Marathon. The Resident Evil remake trilogy has been really fun. I've went back and finished Firewatch, that's been sitting unfinished in my backlog for 10 years, since the PS4 days. I went back and replayed Red Dead. I'm all over the place, and I wouldn't have it any other way. Number 3, I give myself permission to play on easy difficulty more often, and I feel way less shame about that. And the psychological outcome of that decision is that I play much harder games than I used to, and I almost never play them on easy. So I seek a challenge far more than I did at 25. It's sort of like, it's probably kind of a reverse psychology trick that I play on myself. If I say like, okay, I'm allowed to, I beat Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake on standard normal difficulty. So on 4 and all the other sequels, I'm allowed to turn it to easy anytime I want. That's what I tell myself. And so far I have yet to turn it on assist mode. So it's like a neat little psychological trick that, like a security blanket, like if I tell myself there's no shame in playing on easy, I can switch it to easy any moment that I want to, I'm less likely to do it. And it used to be in my 20s, I would play games on easy so I could hurry my way through them, experience the story, which is still, it's still kind of a feeling that I have about games. I want to get through the story first and then enjoy the mechanics later. Kind of a dumb little habit that I built up over a decade or two. But yeah, I'm working on that, and that trick seems to help. Number 4, I don't game to please other people. I play what I truly want to play. My gaming time is either for streaming, and you should come say hi over at twitch.tv/Gerall plays sometime. We have a lot of fun. Or it's for me and no one else. I spend time with the friends that I want to spend time with, and if my brother asks me to play Call of Duty and I really, really don't want to, I will just not do that. Or, if buddies ask me to play some, I don't know, whatever the like, I would say like Mario Golf, but if they asked me to play Mario Golf, I'd be all over it. But, there's all kinds of multiplayer games that come and go. And like, yeah, if I'm interested in playing that game, I'm in. If I would much rather like stream some Resident Evil or play some other like indie narrative game, I'll just do that. Which, number 5 bullet point, I let curiosity and genuine interest guide me as a sort of, through the long, deep catalog and history of video games. I'm not playing stuff out of a sense of duty, obligation, or some notion of a video game, canon, like BioShock, I've never finished, and I really want to do that this year probably. And it's not because I think that it's this great game in the video game canon. Like, I'm just like curious at this point. I was in college when BioShock came out, or I had maybe just graduated college and was, working full time, 40 hours a week for the first time. So it was just not on my radar the way that maybe some other games were. Obviously, like I was always playing the Arkham games and the Rockstar stuff and any Halos or, but stuff like BioShock didn't come onto my radar until like a few years later when I was sort of switching from like the corporate 9 to 5 to more of a freelance remote work situation, doing copy editing and things. So yeah, now I'm just curious about games like BioShock, or I did beat the third one like 5-6 years ago, and I thought that was cool. In some ways, it was worth playing. Number 6, my interest in online multiplayer games, which I kind of hinted at this already, but what the publishers refer to often as live services, has massively diminished since 2023. Owning a gaming PC and having this big digital library on Steam and GOG, which I hope to enjoy for many years to come, maybe even the rest of my life, means I'm far less inclined to invest in games. And that's, time as well, but money especially is a big factor these days. With games that we know come with an expiration date, like a jar of salsa, you eat it in 15 months or you snooze, you lose, right? Like, there are still multiplayer games I'm looking forward to, like Halloween the game. Not any kind of Destiny 3 situation would be, like I would not be able to help myself. I would jump into Destiny 3 head first without thinking. But overall, like multiplayer games have really lost their luster. And that's if you compare that to me 9, 8, 10 years ago, it's a big change. Even 6 years ago, I was playing mostly Apex Legends and stuff like that. So, number 7, emulation and modding. have a lot more appeal these days, which is to say, like, I have a, light amount of those that I do. I'm curious enough to, you have all these retro games at your fingertips, and you can play them at your own pace when you're feeling nostalgic. They have the Star Fox 64, like, fan made what is it? Decompilation and PC port of that. What's that called? Like Star something Star. Anyway, and then they do the same with Ocarina of Time, or a couple people have done that with Ocarina of Time. There are mods that make games like Splinter Cell and Morrowind really polished and run well on modern hardware with like gamepad support and little quality of life touches. There's like Splinter Cell Enhanced and Open MW, which is like a more modern, stable engine that just ports vanilla Morrowind over to kind of, the 21st century. And then of course you can just do the old fashioned emulation like Pokemon Red and Blue and pop them into the Ares emulator or something like that. And games like that will remind you why you fell in love with the medium in the first place. It can be a good bit of perspective, to fire up the old Mission Impossible for the Nintendo 64 and be like, is this as good as I remember? Is this as creative and complex as I remember? And in a lot of ways, yes. And in a lot of ways, it's not so polished. I think that's really powerful to be able to preserve games and re-experience them decades later. There are people doing, all kinds of work that is over my head to make emulation and preservation and modding and all that stuff possible. And so big cheers, or raise my glass to the people who made Splinter Cell Enhanced and Open MW and the Star Fox 64 port. Thank you for those. Number 8, I don't feel the need to compulsively game every single day. Okay. Back when I was playing ranked Halo 5 Guardians on the Xbox One every day, or even just trying to like get good at something like Apex Legends, or trying to figure out a game like Smite, or unlock all the achievements in Star Wars Battlefront 2 in 2017, or like level up in Destiny, there was this like sense that if I jumped on and played for 30 to 60 minutes and like, even if I was miserable, it was like, you clock in and you do your time and you hit your bounties, or you do a quest or two, or an exotic mission, like, oh, that's worth it. No, that's not me anymore. So if I'm streaming for 4 or 5 hours on Tuesday nights or Thursday nights, then I'm probably not going to touch a controller on Wednesday or Saturday. I'm gonna watch movies. I'm gonna spend time with my kids. I'm gonna work on other things. It's like the old teenage dating advice, like the absence makes the heart grow fonder and all that. And I used to just sit down. I would force myself to play a couple matches or whatever, because my identity was wrapped up in this idea of like, I'm, serious gamer. I want to hit, I want to get out of Diamond 5 and 6, and I want to see Onyx rank one day, in Halo 5 particularly. I was competitive. I wanted to, I was like playing with the Elite controller and watching esports, and I thought, I could do that. I could be just as good as those guys if I put in the time. And probably that's true on like some level. Yes. Okay. But there was also the component of, I was earning a living by writing about games for a really long time, starting from like 2016 to especially like 2021. Like that whole period was a freelance games journalism career. And then, I did a lot of like commerce writing, and I had a full-time job for like 4 years, writing about all kinds of stuff that weren't games, but, doing freelance games journalism around that. To kind of like, pay the bills and support a family, but also, have fun and sort of, keep myself fulfilled and fed and all that. But you don't have to game every day, right? It's healthy to treat games like any medium, I think, like books, TV, movies, comics, poetry, whatever you're into, like ballet or going to rock concerts. Okay, moderation is probably healthy, you know. You don't want to be doing the same thing all the time, probably. I mean, who knows? But there was this streamer I used to watch who I would say he was probably a big inspiration for me starting to stream on Twitch even before I was laid off. So like, I started streaming around like, what was it, October of last year, really like mid-October, really heavily started streaming on Twitch. And then I was laid off like in February, at the end of February. So, and he, the streamer, I won't say who it is, but you know, he plays Fortnite, and that, like, if you ask him what he does, what albums does he listen to, what books does he read, what movies does he like, what TV shows does he watch, he will say, I just play Fortnite. I think he's a very wise, intelligent, in many ways a rounded human being who has a healthy relationship with the game and with streaming and Fortnite. But I can't imagine like Fortnite being my only sort of leisure time, you know. And like, I dare say he sometimes appears to be kind of miserable while he's streaming Fortnite. And it's like I say, moderation is healthy, I think. And, you know, I think sometimes it's nice to put down the controller, put down the DVDs and say, I'm going to read some short stories. I'm going to read that Stephen King book that I love, or whatever the case might be. I don't prestige in Call of Duty anymore. I don't buy game passes. I don't grind for the sake of grinding. I play what I want to play when I want to play it for the most part. So, yeah, it's all of this is really different than when I was in my mid-20s. And I think that, you know, in a few years when I hit 40, 45, you know, if I'm, if I'm still kicking, and I think I will be, I, I imagine things will be different then too, but that's where I'm at these days. You know, life is pretty good. The country I'm living in and the state of the world is not always so good. But yeah, I'd love to know about you too. Like, how has your relationship with gaming changed over the years? You know, let me know. This has been a lot of fun. So thanks so much, and have a good one.